hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Announcing the Game, and thanks for checking back in. I'll do my best to make this worth your while. I'll try to share some experience to help make you a better public address announcer. I'm Tom Winnicky. I've been a public address announcer at the high school level at Fayetteville Manly's High School in central New York State, announcing for many of their sports, including football, soccer, field hockey, basketball, wrestling, volleyball, baseball, lacrosse, ice hockey, and track and field. Now I'm primarily a public address announcer at the Division I level at Syracuse University of the Atlantic Coast Conference and at Colgate University of the Patriot League, where I've announced football, soccer, field hockey, volleyball, ice hockey, basketball, and softball. I'm also the public address announcer for the New York State Public High School Athletic Association's state championships for girls lacrosse and for football. In this episode of Announcing the Game, we'll go over all that you'll need to know to be a public address announcer for an ice hockey game. We'll go over what you can prepare for ahead of time before getting to the rink. Then once you're there, what you can do pre-game, in-game, and post-game. We'll go over the unique way that time of goals and penalties are announced, as well as what to announce and what not to. We'll also go over ways that you could possibly organize your rosters to make introductions, as well as goals and assists easier to both announce and keep track of. So what do you say? Let's drop the puck here and get right into being a public address announcer for ice hockey. Now, in talking to some state-level ice hockey folks, the one big thing that I heard from them about expectations for their PA people is to be knowledgeable and to be organized. Well, come to think of it, that goes for any sport that we announce. So what is it that you have to do to prepare for to announce an ice hockey game? Well, let's begin with what you can do before setting foot in the rink. First are the rosters. Be sure that you have all the names, and for college games, their hometowns pronounced correctly. But how do we get that information? For high schools, that's easy. More and more high schools will now post their rosters online. Now, if you can't find them online, a quick call to that school's athletic department secretary will get you an accurate roster. Well then, while you have that secretary on the line, ask to read through that roster with them. They'll probably already know these kids, so they'll be able to help you with their names. Another perk associated with talking to the secretary is that if you announce other sports for your school and make these calls for each season, you start to develop a positive relationship with these important people. They come to see that you take what you do seriously, and you work to ensure that every team that comes into your school will be treated with respect from you. Now, if for some reason you can't connect with the secretary ahead of time, you'll need to meet with a coach on game day. Now, please understand that these folks have a lot on their minds pre-game, so look to connect with them at least an hour or so before game time. They'll more than likely be happy to help you with those names, but we just need to respect all that they have on their minds on game day. So get there early, so you can take care of this before they get into their pregame mode. Now, another thing to get from a coach pregame is their starting lineup. Most all high school rosters will be sorted numerically, so if a coach wants the lineups introduced by number, well, that's easy. I've seen rosters sorted alphabetically, but that only gets in our way. If you do get one sorted by names, if it's not in a format that you can resort yourself, ask that secretary if they can sort it by number for you. Now, if they want their roster introduced by position, well, that's a little different. Working from a paper roster on game day, you'll need to use a different color highlighter to mark the forwards, marked as right wing, center, and left wing, then the defenseman, and then the goalie. You may end up with something that looks like this. Now here's an example of a hockey roster that's sorted numerically. You can see I've used 3 different colors to make it easy for me to keep track of who I introduce and when. The forward line, the center, left wing, and right wing is marked in blue. And you can see I'm going to introduce the left wing first. I have a number 1 next to the left wing. Center is introduced second, and then the right winger is introduced third. Next are the green, the defensive pairing, the two defensemen. And then the goaltender is marked in orange, and they are the last person that I introduce. Another thing to prepare for ahead of time are statistics. You want to keep track of goals and assists and penalties on one sheet and another sheet for cumulative goals. Now here's an example of one that I've developed that's worked for me. You can see how I keep track of goals, assists, time of goals, whether it's a power play or shorthanded goal, as well as penalties. So here's an example of that stat sheet we talked about. We have goals and assists at the top and penalties in each period at the bottom. You can see the first goal of the game was scored by Colgate's number 15, assisted by number 6, the time of the goal 8:15. Now you notice the PP that I wrote down here, that means power play. There was a penalty from the opponent, number 14, for holding. That penalty was at 7:30. So Colgate's goal was while they had the man advantage, so they're credited with a power play goal. The other goals and assists are marked down in the second period. Number 2 scored unassisted. Number 7 scored from an assist from 15, a third period goal as well as penalties in the second period, and there were no penalties in the third period. Just a way for you to keep track. The other one, if available to you, are cumulative goals, both for the game and for the season. Now, some areas of the country have central websites that high schools report their goals and assists to. Or possibly a local newspaper has a big high school sports section and has a link on their website for this information. If this information is available to you for a high school game, it's a great touch to have this on a stat sheet. When I announce our state girls lacrosse finals, I contact each school involved to have them send me their season goal statistics, if they're not already available online, so I can use them when I announce their team's goals. College teams will all post their statistics online, so it's easy to find that for a collegiate game. Now here's an example of one that has worked for me. Take a look and see if you could use it, or maybe you can modify it and make it better. Now here's that cumulative goal scoring sheet that I just described. This is for a collegiate game, so I was able to go to both teams' hockey websites and get the updated goal scoring statistics for the season. So now I know when somebody scores a goal, I can announce it as their first of the day and their 8th or 9th of the season. For example, if Simon Dadier scores a goal, I can say it's his first of the game and 6th of the season. If Micah Berger scores a goal, it would be his first of the evening and 6th of the season. When he gets his second goal, his 2nd of the evening and 7th of the season. Just a little way to add a little more class to your goal scoring announcements. So once again, you can see that using a sheet like this allows you to announce a goal and make it sound something like this. Raider goal, his first of the evening and 11th of the season, scored by number 12, Daniel Panetta, with the assist from Reed Irwin. That's Panetta from Irwin. Time of the goal, 10:45. It just adds a little more class and professionalism to your announcements, as well as giving that player credit not only for that game's goal, but also for their season total of goals as well. Now let's jump back to those rosters for a minute. A college roster is easy to organize this way, since rosters and season stats are all available online. Some colleges include audio files attached to each page on the roster. Look for that ear icon. Clicking on that icon opens up a file that has the players saying their name and their hometown. This makes things really easy for us, especially if you're in a region of the country where there are other foreign players on the rosters. This lets you hear the name spoken in the native accent. If you can hear this and practice it so it sounds authentic, you can respectfully read players' names with that accent. It's a small touch, but it means a lot to those players, their teammates, and their families. If this isn't available with that audio file, then a quick call to the Sports Information Director, the SID, will get you those correct pronunciations. Now, some hometowns can be tricky, especially those from overseas. Now, I've been able to do an online search for these hometowns. I look for a video about those locations. Then I get a local person saying the name of that particular town. Sometimes I can find a video of a local newscast about an event in the town I need. Even better, because now I have a local person saying the town in their news report. Now, just like that high school secretary, those SIDs will quickly see that you are a professional that will take the steps necessary to ensure that their teams are treated respectfully by you. Now, whether I'm talking to a high school secretary or a collegiate sports information director or an assistant coach, I always finish by asking them that if they do hear me mispronounce a name, to please come right up and tell me right away. The bottom line, I want to get it right for all of them. I wouldn't want my name repeatedly mispronounced, and no player would want that either. You can easily download a college roster into a spreadsheet, then resort the columns and rows to fit what you need. If teams want their starters introduced numerically, just leave the roster as it is, sorted numerically. If teams want their starting lineups introduced by position, then you can sort it so the forwards are together by number, then the defense is grouped together, and then the goalkeepers last. Then you can highlight the 3 starting forwards, again marked with right wing, center, left wing, then the 2 starters on defense, then the goaltender. It would look something like this. Now here's an example of that roster sorted by position. The forwards are on top, defensemen in the middle, goalkeepers at the bottom. The forward line is marked, left wing first, centerman second, right wing third, then the 2 defensemen, then the goalkeeper. So I just read it straight down the line. For example, it would start to sound like this. Starting at left wing, a 6'1" senior from Oakville, Ontario, number 28, Alex DePaulo. And then I would continue with the rest of the starters. Another thing that you will need to have a basic understanding of are penalties. The official has a signal for each penalty. You can easily find these on our website, publicaddressannouncer.org. Once there, go to Tools along the top. Then scroll down until you see Signals. Then just click on Ice Hockey. Now, whenever I started working a new sport, for me, I would print off the official signals that I'd use as a reference during the game. This may be a good idea for you for your first few ice hockey games. The official calling the penalty won't skate over to you to tell you their call. They'll skate over to where you are and stop, say, 15 or 20 feet in front of you to signal the penalty. You will need to be able to quickly interpret their signal and also see who is being sent to the penalty box. Most of the time, you'll be sitting at ice level, most likely next to the clock operator, or you may end up in a press box upstairs. If you're up off the ice surface in a press box, you'll need to have communication set in place to have that call relayed up to you. Many places just use a walkie-talkie. Minor penalties are 2 minutes. A more serious penalty, a major penalty, can range from 5 to 10 to 20 minutes in length. If this is the call, the referee will come over to you to explain that major penalty. Know that if you've seen our other free tutorials, you've seen me say, stay out of the way of the game. Say what needs to be said, then get out of the way. Let the game be the focus, not on us. Things like talking when a free throw shooter has the ball, or when a player is attempting a corner kick, or when the quarterback is at the line of scrimmage. Talking then are big no-nos. Now, this isn't the case for ice hockey. It's perfectly acceptable to make a penalty announcement after play resumes. It would sound like this. Laker penalty to number 12, Mike Jacobs. 2 minutes for tripping. That's Jacobs. 2 minutes for tripping. Time of the penalty, 10:25. Now, you just heard my last example say the time of the penalty was 10:25, or my example of announcing a goal being at 10:45. I'll get into how to calculate the time to announce a penalty or goal in just a few minutes. Now, with penalties, there's one difference between girls and women's game and the boys and men's game. Body checking, using your body to play an opponent, while legal in the boys and men's game, is illegal in the girls and women's games. Now, incidental contact is allowed, so that illegal body checking penalty in the women's game is somewhat up to the referee's discretion. Be sure to know that signal for that infraction. Now, like the rest of those signals, you can find them at publicaddressannouncer.org. Now, I hope you've heard me say in our other free tutorials that luck favors the prepared, or Branch Rickey from the old Brooklyn Dodgers with luck is the residue of design. Well, then there's my dad's favorite. I'd rather be lucky than good. Having all of this taken care of, roster names, order of introductions, and even the on-ice officials' names, is a great start. Now, speaking of the officials, it's always good for you to find these folks pregame and introduce yourself. Ask them if they would mind if you introduce them after the starting lineups. If they're okay with it, mention their professional association. Then introduce the referee first. They have the red armband. Then the linesman. I like to introduce them as Mr. or Mrs. or Ms. It shows some respect and professionalism towards them. Another thing to remember are that college games have access to video review. So while talking to those collegiate officials pregame, also ask that if a call does go to video review, to please have them tell you what the review is looking for, as well as what the result of that review is, so you can announce that to the crowd. Be aware, though, not to announce the findings of that video review until both coaches have been informed first. Now, other things to find out ahead of time would be to find out what else is expected for you to say pregame. Is there a sportsmanship read given to you, or are you expected to come up with one yourself? Where does the national anthem fit and fall into all this? For more information about the national anthem, check out our other free tutorial on all the protocols associated with our national anthem. Well, are there any other local ads to read? Is there a timing sheet mapping all of this out for you? Most every college event will have this prepared for you. The high schools, though, they may not. So as we said, at the college level, marketing will have all of this prepared for you ahead of time. Be sure to ask for this ahead of time so you can rehearse it before you get to the game site. Now it's easy. You just say what they give you to say, when to say it on the timing sheet. Now at the high school level, your athletic director will be your first contact for this information. They're just another person to check with before you get to the game site. If you're working a high school game that doesn't provide a timing sheet or scripts, and you're just given a list of ads to read, and you say, just get them in whenever you can, well, that can be a little tricky. You don't want to answer to someone who's upset because their ad didn't get read. High school ice hockey has 2 built-in breaks between periods 1 and 2 and between periods 2 and 3, plus any pregame time. So now you need to find out how long those intermissions are between periods and see how many announcements or ads that you have to read and figure out how you can fit those into each intermission. Now, one thing I learned from talking with marketing folks at the collegiate level, and this can apply to high school games as well, is not to read similar ads together. So split up the car dealership ads or the local grocery store ads. Give them their own separate place in your rundown. You see, everybody wants their ads to stand out, and look to get your ads done for an ice hockey game before the 3rd period. Now I say this because at that point, everybody's focus is on the game and they won't be necessarily paying attention when you're reading an ad. Plus, the last thing we want to become is Charlie Brown's teacher, where we talk, but nobody's listening. At the college level, Another break that we have built into our schedule are media timeouts. These are preset timeouts that will take place after the first whistle under 10 minutes in each period. Now at that point, the person on the arena clock will turn on a red light, signaling to the officials not to restart the game. When the red light goes off, the official knows that the game's production is back from commercial and the game can restart. Now these breaks are other good times to get in any other reads like local ads or reads about other teams on campus. Be aware though that there are times under 10 minutes when the game cannot go to a media timeout. These include things like icing or during a power play or if a goal was scored. Now this isn't our decision. This is just something to be aware of when getting close to that 10-minute mark in each period and to know when it's appropriate to announce the game is now in a timeout for media. So, especially at the high school level, if you are in charge of writing scripts and putting ads together in an order for an ice hockey game, check out our other free tutorial on script writing. Now, when talking with marketing for college games or the athletic director for a high school game, be sure to also ask if there are other items that you're expected to read. Are there between-period promotions planned? Is there a sled race where two teams pull each other on a plastic sled back and forth on the ice? Or a chuck-a-puck contest where folks can donate $1 or $2 to get a foam puck with a number on it, and on your signal they all toss it to see whose puck lands closest to the center faceoff dot. Now this chuck-a-puck is a fun one to promote early in the game. You can tell them where they can pay $1 to get a puck that they'll chuck. And we'll do that after the second period. Now, just be sure that you use your best enunciation. There may be other things to announce as well. My advice is to make it a habit to find out exactly what you're going to be expected to say over the course of the game. You don't want any surprises at the last minute. Now, with that being said, and I mentioned this in some of our other videos, is that what we need to do is to stay flexible. What Scottish poet Robert Burns said about the best laid plans of mice and men always go astray, well, that can apply to us. Last minute changes will happen. Yes, we want to be as prepared as possible, but also to be ready, willing, and able to handle something thrown at us in the last minute with class and professionalism. Our job is to handle any last minute changes so no one in the arena knows that it was a last minute change. So, we've got everything ready to go. Our rosters are all set with starters marked either by position or by number. We know what marketing or the athletic director wants us to read. It looks like we're ready for the game to start. So let's drop the puck, shall we? One thing as public address announcers that can be a bit specific to ice hockey is how we speak. We'll get into what we speak here also, but be aware of the acoustics in the rink. It's usually a pretty big building, and the sound could echo. There could be metal bleachers or a metal roof. Tell yourself to speak just a little bit slower. Not overly so, but just enough to ensure that you are better able to be understood. Now, back to what to say. Teams will take the ice along with the officials for warm-ups. At the conclusion of this, the horn goes off, cueing you to start things off. A general welcome comes first, welcoming fans to the rink and saying who's playing. When I do this, I always name our opponents as our guests. Yes, it's a competitive game, and we are trying to beat them, but I find that by referring to them as our guests shows them some well-deserved respect. Their kids put in the same time at practice as our kids. They do their homework at all hours like our kids do. So it's the least that we can do here. Then the home team gets introduced and it's referred to as our Hornets or our Lakers. I find it's a little more appropriate than saying your Hornets or your Lakers. After all, it's not just you that are their fans, we're all their fans. I know it's a little thing, but if Alan Roach can do this when he works Minnesota Vikings games, we can do it too, don't you think? Starting lineups come next. With that horn, teams will each line up at their respective end lines or at their benches. Now it's time to introduce those starting lineups. Remember how earlier I talked about how the coach wants their lineups introduced, numerically or by position. You should be ready to go with this. If it's numerically, read them off. If by position, start with the forwards. Again, left wing, center, right wing, then the defensive pairing, then the goaltender. Now, if a coach wants to have their defense read first, then the forwards, then the goaltender, just do it that way. It's their game. Follow their instructions. For high school players, introduce them starting by position, followed by their year in school, then jersey number, then their name, like this. At left wing, a senior, number 12, Joe Smith. For college, use position, height, year in school, hometown, number, and then their name. It would go like this. Starting at left wing, a 5'10" junior from Edina, Minnesota, number 24, Andy Evans. Now the ice clears except for the starters. This is a good time to also introduce the on-ice officials. As we talked about earlier, some places also introduce off-ice officials, goal judges and timers. If the boss wants them introduced, then add them in at the end. If not, don't bother. There's also the national anthem. Remember earlier how we talked about finding where the athletic director of marketing wants it played? When I've announced ice hockey games at Colgate University, many of the players from both teams are often from French Canada. My last line that when they want me to read is, "And now it's time for some Raider hockey." I've asked and was okayed to also add, "Mesdames et Messieurs, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for some Raider hockey." Now at one time, the women's team at Colgate had players from the Czech Republic. So I found out how to say ladies and gentlemen in Czech. So I added, "Dámy a pánové, Mesdames et Messieurs, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for," and add that. Just my way to show those players some respect for their backgrounds. Now, again, just to be sure, clear this first. Once the game starts, there could be a lot of downtime. Ice hockey is typically not a high-scoring game. We're only announcing goals, assists, and penalties. You can also add when a penalty expires and that a team returns to full strength. Also, you need to announce when there's 1 minute remaining in a period. If it's a close game in the third period, you can say something like, "Last minute of play in regulation time," because there can be overtime. And we'll talk about overtime a little later. Now, at the end of each period, you can also announce shots on goal for each team. This may be displayed up on the scoreboard in your rink, or the home team's book may keep track of this. If you plan to announce this statistic, be sure to know where to find it during your pregame preparation. To announce goals, we as announcers should do our best to keep track of who is passing to who. Ice hockey awards up to 2 assists on a given goal. Now these could be somewhat subjective. Basically, if a pass leads directly to a shot that scores a goal, that player is given an assist. If someone passes to someone who then passes to someone else who scores, then 2 assists are given. Now, if someone passes to a player that skates, let's say, halfway up the ice before scoring, you wouldn't give that assist. The goal would be announced as unassisted. Now, I started by saying for us to keep track as best we can, but we are not official. The referee will come directly over to us and speak through that hole in the plexiglass. Their job is to tell us who scored and who gets any assists. If there is a discrepancy in what we thought we saw and what the referee tells us, the referee's call is what we announce. Now, teams may petition the official from the bench to say that they had another player that had an assist on the play. Now, especially at the high school level, more often than not, the official will acquiesce and award that second assist. Just remember, we don't make this adjustment. The referee does. They'll come over and tell us of any change. Many times, a college official will tell you the goal, but they didn't see an assist, and they'll ask you to call up to video to get any assists. A college game should have direct communication between you and video review. You can call up with what the referee told you. If they review the video and give assists, then it's okay to add those in. Now this will usually take a minute or two to sort out, and the game will probably restart in the interim. Just like penalties, it's perfectly okay to announce the goal and any assist while play has been resumed. It's actually preferred this way. If your stats also include season goal totals, your announcement would sound something like this. Buffalo goal, his first of the game and 21st of the season, scored by number 18, Danny Gare, with an assist to Don Luce and to Craig Ramsey. That's Gare. From Luce and Ramsey. Time of the goal, 12:34. If it's a power play goal, like we mentioned earlier with those rosters, when the other team has somebody in the penalty box, you add it to your announcement. I like to add it to the last line saying, that's Gare. From Luce and Ramsey on the power play. Time of the goal, 12:34. If it's a shorthanded goal, that is a goal scored while killing off a penalty, you would say, that's Gare. From Luce and Ramsey, shorthanded goal at 12:34. Now here's something else I heard from more than one state-level ice hockey administrator. When announcing a goal for the home team, it's okay to show more enthusiasm for that home team's goal without going over the top. But it's also expected of us to read a guest's team goal professionally. You don't want to sound like you're in a morgue when the other team scores a goal. I call it respectful enthusiasm. Just like my point for starting lineups, all the other players put in just as much time as ours do in practice and so on. So being respectful of our opponents that you introduce as our guests is important. We're just doing our part to set the tone. An example about this that was shared with me again with more than one state level person was how they've heard home team goals announced. After finishing who scored, assisted, and the time of the goal, the announcer finished with a woo, and the crowd would echo it back. To me and to these state level people, this is not classy, this is not a professional thing for us to do. Stick to being a reporter, not a cheerleader. Tell folks who scored, who was awarded the assist, and a bit more juice for the home team, but still respectfully enthusiastic for our guests. Let the focus stay on the players on the ice and not on how we say things. Now, let's get into the traditional way ice hockey announces the time of a goal or the time of a penalty. You don't announce what you see on the scoreboard clock. It's not time remaining in the period. It's read as elapsed time in a period. You have to do some quick math in your head. For a 20-minute period, let's say, for example, the goal is scored and you look up at the clock and it reads 9:25. To calculate the time of the goal, the elapsed time in the period, take 20, the 20-minute period, minus 10. You get that by rounding up 9 minutes and 25 seconds. That gives you the 10th minute. If this was soccer, you'd stop right there and say the goal was scored in the 10th minute. But for ice hockey, you have to factor in the seconds also. So for the goal scored at 9:25, you take 60 seconds minus 25 from 9:25 to give you 35 seconds. Combine the minutes and the seconds and you have the goal scored at 10:35. You can check your math by adding 10:35 plus 9:25 to get you that full 20-minute period. Now, the first few ice hockey games I did, it was a bit of a process, but like anything, the more you do it, the faster you get. Now I'm to the point where I can take a quick look at the time on the scoreboard, and when I see the goal scored, I can quickly figure out in my head the time of the goal. You'll get there also. Just give yourself some time. Now the same goes for announcing penalties. Just be sure that you're solid on the referee's signals because they won't come over to you like they did for a goal. Remember how we said this earlier, they'll stop out in front of you and signal the call. They won't say what it was. Now for boys and men's games and for girls and women's games, the penalties and their signals are the same except for one. Did you remember what that was? Remember earlier how we said that a women's game has a penalty for illegal body checking. When announcing that girls or women's game, be sure to go into it being aware that this is also a penalty that could be called and it's not called in a boys or men's game. Other than that, there's really no differences to be aware of. Now, to announce a typical penalty, you need to include who's penalized and for what infraction, for how long the penalty is, finishing with the time of the penalty. It would sound something like this. If, for example, the scoreboard clock is stopped for the penalty and it reads 11 minutes and 15 seconds. Bulldog penalty to number 21, Dan Bouchard. 2 minutes for high sticking. That's Bouchard. 2 minutes for high sticking. Time of the penalty, 8:45. Now, know that if your facility scoreboard shows penalty time counting down, that's all you need to say. If, on the other hand, the scoreboard does not display penalty time, you should end with when the penalty will expire. You would add, that penalty will expire at 9:15. Read the expiration time as a time showing on the clock. Don't worry about calculating time like you did for the penalty. Just read when the main scoreboard clock would say when the penalty is expired. That's what the fans will see, and that's the easiest for them to understand. Then when the penalty does expire, you can announce, the Bulldogs now return to full strength. So, to review a bit, we're announcing goals, assists, penalties, when they expire, as well as the last minute of play in each period, and shots on goal between each period. As far as the game action goes, well, that's pretty much it. Now, on the other hand, there are things that you shouldn't announce. Offsides, when an offensive player enters the attacking zone by completely crossing the blue line before the puck does. It's not a penalty, we don't announce it. Icing is something else that we don't announce. That's when an attacking player shoots the puck from their side of the center red line all the way down the ice without being touched, so the puck crosses the opponent's goal line. A hand pass is something else that you may see, but you don't need to announce it. It's just what it says. A teammate uses their hand to pass a puck to a teammate. Substitutions are something else we don't bother with. Line changes come every minute or so, and you'd never be able to keep up with them anyways. The only substitute that we would announce would be for a new goaltender. Make sure, though, to announce this as soon as the team makes the change. Now, ice hockey, like many other sports that we announce, has one thing that we never want to say out loud. The rules for this, though, depend on what group is governing your event. For high school games, the NFHS, in the regular season, ties are decided by a sudden victory 5-minute period played 3-on-3. If no one scores in this 5-minute overtime, and if the game is part of a regular season tournament where a winner is needed, a shootout will determine that winner. If it's just a regular season game and it's tied after that first overtime, it goes into the books as a tie. Playoff games play 20-minute 5-on-5 sudden victory periods until a winner is determined. Now, be aware that individual states may have different guidelines, so be sure to know what's done in your area of the country. USA Hockey follows the same format as the NFHS, but they include a shootout for tie games after that 5-minute 3-on-3 overtime period. For NCAA games, for postseason games, overtime consists of 5-on-5, 20-minute sudden victory periods. For regular season games, in most cases, a 5-minute 3-on-3 sudden victory period is played. Some conferences may go to a shootout to settle things, and others may not. They just declare the game a tie. Some conferences may not choose to play overtime at all in regular season. Again, just know the rules for your team's conference before you start your season. So, as you can see, it's on us to find out what the overtime rules are for our games before we head out. Then, if and when a game you're announcing does go to overtime, you're prepared to explain the overtime rules at the end of regulation. There's nothing worse than seeing something happen as a fan and have no idea what's going on. But by you going over the rules for overtime is one way to help inform the fans about what's about to happen. When it comes down to it, that's our role in a nutshell, to inform fans about what's going on. Goals, assists, penalties, shots on goal, last minute play, and now the overtime rules. Something else to add to our list of what we should announce are timeouts. For high schools, the NFHS says that each team is allowed one 1-minute timeout per game. USA Ice Hockey has the same 1-minute timeout for each team. And to keep things easy for us, the NCAA also allows each team one 1-minute timeout per game. Now earlier I talked about asking the officials to tell you about a call that's going to go to video review. A video review is something available at college games. A team can request a video review. Your announcement after hearing confirmation of the review from the referee could be, RPI has challenged the ruling on the ice for a good goal for Colgate. That play is now under video review. Now let's step back to that time earlier in this tutorial. Remember how I suggested to get the officials' name pronunciations? It's also good to ask about video review at this time. Ask them to please tell you what they're looking for and what the result of the review is. Now you can surmise by my example here about announcing that RPI has challenged the previous call of a good goal for Colgate, that it implies that the official came to me to tell me what the challenge is about. If I didn't get that information from the official, all I would be able to announce was, the previous play is under video review. I wouldn't be able to say what the review was looking for because no one officially told me. Now again, as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing worse than being a fan and see something happen and not have a clue about what's going on. So by opening up this line of communication with officials ahead of time, it lets you better inform the crowd of what's going on. Then, when the official tells you the result of the review, as we talked about earlier, you need to wait until both coaches have been told first. Then you can say, the previous call of a good goal for Colgate stands. RPI loses their timeout. Now, if you haven't already announced the goal and any assist, you do that now. If RPI were to win the challenge and the referee told you they won that challenge, your announcement instead would sound like this. After review, it was determined that Colgate had kicked the puck into the net. The Raiders' goal is disallowed and RPI retains their timeout. Again, all we're doing is informing the fans about what's happening, and in this case, what the result of the review was. Injuries happen. When they do, our job, stay quiet. The last thing we want to do is interfere with communication on the ice by making announcements or playing music. We just do our part to let the folks around the injured players, the coaches, the parents, the athletic trainer, or any other emergency personnel communicate freely. When the injured player either gets up and leaves on their own or is helped off, we stay quiet. Let the spontaneous applause happen. We don't need to say anything about hoping they're all right or anything else. We just let the appropriate personnel do their job. Now, what about other things that delay game action? While they're probably unlikely, the facility has plans in place for many situations. While it's not our job to come up with these plans, we need to be calm and completely communicate these plans to the fans if and when it's needed. Other things to consider, say the fire alarm goes off. Where do we send folks to safely evacuate? This one should probably be part of your pregame announcements. What if the lights go out? Will you still have power to use the PA? What if you don't? Again, who do you talk to get these answers? For more information about possible situations like this, check out our other free tutorial about emergencies. So looking back, announcing the starting lineups went off without a hitch since you got the pronunciations and starters ahead of time. You were able to announce goals and assists with announcing the time of goal the traditional way with your preset stat sheets. You got through all the ads given to you before the third period. The game just ended. So now what? Well, now it's time to close up shop, verbally, that is. Begin by thanking all the fans for coming, for their support of the team. If it's a high school game, it's a good touch to announce when and where both teams play their next game. If it's a collegiate game, just stick to the home team's next game. If it's on the road, add how they can tune in, either on the television somewhere or on the radio. Then finish by saying when their next home game is and how they can get their tickets, and then finish by wishing them a safe trip home. For a high school game, it could sound something like this. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for attending tonight's game and for your continued support of high school ice hockey at both Cazenovia and Fayetteville Manlius High Schools. Whether you are a fan of the Lakers and are back in action next Tuesday at Skaneateles for a 7 o'clock start, or you're a fan of the Hornets and are right back here next Tuesday for a 6:30 face-off with Cicero North Syracuse. We'd like to remind you that all of us associated with FM Athletics, as well as the Town of Manlius Police, would ask that you please buckle up and enjoy a safe trip home. And wherever you go, go Hornets! For a college game, it could sound like this. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for attending tonight's game and for your continued support of Colgate Raider women's ice hockey. The Raiders hit the road on Saturday for a 2 o'clock start with the Cornell Big Red, and that game is available for you on ESPN+. The team returns home here to the Class of 1965 Arena next Wednesday for a 7 o'clock face-off with Yale. Your tickets are available at colgateathletics.com/tickets. All of us associated with Colgate Athletics, as well as our Colgate Campus Police, would ask that you please buckle up and enjoy a safe trip home. And wherever you go, go Gate! Well folks, that's about it. I hope this video has made you a bit more comfortable about announcing ice hockey, whether that be for a high school or a college game. So please, feel free to send me some constructive comments. You can send me one directly at my email address here on the screen. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, log in and post your comment that way. We're always looking for feedback as we look to create more of these free tutorials. And also, take another look at our website, publicaddressannouncer.org, for more resources in all things public address announcing. Thanks for watching this episode of Announcing the Game. My name's Tom Winicki, and I hope to hear you on the mic.